Merry Brewmas, everyone! 'Tis the season for Christmas-themed Entitled People and Just No Mail Reddit stories. Because we all know that Christmas brings out the worst in narcissists, but it's also the season of the Brewmas merch giveaway. Subscribe, like this video, and leave a Christmas tree emoji in the comments below to be entered to win some merch from the Reddit Brew merch store. I donate all my merch profit to my local food bank, which is especially important this time of year. Today for you guys, I'm sure you'll all be so pleased to hear that I have done it. I've looked far and wide, I've scoured all of Reddit, and have found yet another delusional Christmas mill with zero boundaries or self-awareness. So buckle up, grab your tablecloth-sized lace handkerchiefs, and strap in for this mini saga of a Just No Mill they call the Grinch. If my husband could post this, he would. His mill sucks. Let's go back in time, shall we? It's Christmas, circa 2010, and my lovely husband, then boyfriend, was coming to my parents' house to celebrate. His family lives on the other side of the country, so I stupidly thought it would be nice for him to have a Christmas day with family. Only, he wasn't allowed to come before dinner time, since that's family time. But then we had to push back dinner since they had a few gifts for him. And a stocking. The stocking is crucial. During dinner, my mother, who we'll call the Grinch, proceeds to tell him in no uncertain terms that because I've gone through a lot of schooling and he only went to snort tech school, he really shouldn't expect this relationship to last. I mean, I'm clearly far too smart for him. Meanwhile, I'm the one with massive student loan debt and he's the one who's been working and saving since he was 20. So oh, and he must not have manners and been raised in a barn because he only used one fork for both the salad and the meal when there were clearly two forks on the table. Being the gentleman that he is, he gets through this as politely as possible. Then, as we go to leave, she says, "Oh, you can take this stocking with you. It's not like we'll need it again." What did you just say? We won't need it next year. You won't be here. And that, my friends, is how my mother ruined Christmas. She was later so confused as to why I was angry and refused to speak to her for several months. But he just took it the wrong way. No, I heard you. I was there. I know what you said and how you meant it. First post here. Thanks for reading. I'll have plenty more. Don't you worry. She's real special. The Grinch doesn't like when I don't answer the phone. To give an insight on how truly epic the Grinch and her shenanigans are, I'll be telling you the story of the time the Grinch returned her birthday present. At the time, I was a law student, and consequently didn't have a ton of money to throw around on things like gifts. Seeing as how I needed to pay for frivolous things such as rent and food, and I'll be honest, some $2 chuck. Well, I was also in therapy, you know, to deal with the Grinch. It was a group therapy, and during that time, I would keep my phone on silent because, you know, I'm not a monster. I would regularly leave the session, which was on Mondays from 6 to 8, so set time and schedule, to see that I had a minimum of 10 calls missed from the Grinch. I would call her back, thinking there was an emergency. Oh, no, she just needed to get a hold of me and couldn't. So she called and called and called, because leaving a message would be difficult, I guess. Anyway, I'd tell her that I had class during that time, and there was no way for me to respond until I was heading back home. So if it wasn't an emergency, she could wait until later in the evening or the next day to call me, so that she could actually get a hold of me and talk. Well, this was not good enough. I was so disrespectful to her. I should always answer her calls. Always. Never would she ignore her own mother. So I tell her that I've just pulled up to a friend's house and I would talk to her later, as she was clearly not going to listen or be rational. Hey, I just left therapy, and the conversation was no longer productive. A few hours later, I returned home to find the birthday gift I had given her just a few days before, a D&B wallet that I had saved and borrowed money from my dad to get her, sitting still in the box it was wrapped in, just inside my front door. I practically tripped over it. Needless to say, I was thankful I had made the purchase at Nordstrom, since they'll take almost anything back, and my dad was horrified when I returned his money way more quickly than agreed upon, because Mom returned the gift to me. I still haven't asked where the hell he thought she'd raced off to at 8:30 p.m. just to return an hour later. The Grinch doesn't understand time zones. Now, generally speaking, the Grinch is in the same time zone as my husband and I, mostly because we live down the street and around the corner, but she travels to visit her mother on the other side of the country every other month. Now, I realize this is entirely BEC, but if I get one more text message at 3:30 a.m. or 4 a.m. because she's on the East Coast and can't figure out that it's not 7 a.m. on the West Coast, I'm going to scream. Yes, everything is off, and I am an early riser, so it doesn't affect my sleep or anything, but it's so annoying, especially because if I don't respond within seconds, it turns into, "You never respond. I don't understand why you aren't talking to me." Well, Grinch, I'm either asleep because it's still nighttime where I live, or at work because I have bills to pay, so I can't answer the damn text every 5 seconds. The Grinch is upset about family photos. Background: my grandfather on my father's side was a member of a division in the army known as the 442. This was during World War II, and it's pretty awesome that he was part of that if you ask me. Anyway, due to their service, they were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. Many of the members were unreachable. They weren't typically the guys on the internet in 2010, and it took several years to find them or their families. Through a series of events, the group looking for the members / their families found my grandfather through me around 2014. So it's 2014. My husband was still my boyfriend at this point, but we had lived together officially for 2 years. The Grinch is out of town when the ceremony is set to happen. My father invites both my husband and me to the ceremony, and of course we attend. There are photos taken because it's kind of a big deal for the organization that's been seeking to find these service members. My husband is in them, next to me and my dad. I'm sure you can see where this is going. Why is he in the family photo? He's part of the family, Grinch. No, he doesn't even share a last name with your grandfather. He shouldn't be recognized. Well, none of us were recognized. Grandfather was. No, you are being recognized for being his family. I should have been there. I knew something bad was going to happen. I should have insisted they move the ceremony. Actually, Dad spoke entirely about grandfather. It wasn't about us at all. And if you're going to continue screaming at me, I'm going to hang up now. Your cousin showed me the pictures on Facebook. How could you do this to us? It's supposed to be a family picture. Click. Note: it took everything in me not to point out that she didn't share a last name with grandfather when he was serving, so she probably shouldn't have been in the photo either if she was only concerned about generational lines. The Grinch isn't sure people will know who I am. When I got married, I decided to take my husband's last name. It gave me cool initials and didn't add like 87 letters or anything, and I wanted to, so nothing else really matters. Unless he didn't want that or something, of course. Anyway, for those not keeping track, my husband is of Hispanic descent. His last name reflects that. Think Gomez or Gonzalez or Hernandez. I am decidedly not of Hispanic descent, but I mean, I live in San Diego. Last names with Hispanic origins are not particularly uncommon. When I told the Grinch I'd be changing my last name, she was horrified. No one will understand who you are. You'll have to introduce yourself repeatedly because they won't understand why a white girl sounds Mexican. Side note, my husband is not Mexican. Not that it matters, but he's not. I don't really think it matters. Sally Sue and Betty Jo have changed their names, and their last names don't reveal their ethnic origins either. Note, Sally Sue and Betty Jo are people I went to high school with, and the Grinch believes she and their mothers are BFFs. Well, Sally Sue looks like she could be, and you don't. Everyone will be confused, and some will probably even think you speak Spanish. Well, I do understand most of it, and can come up with enough Spanglish to get by, so I'm not sure what the problem is here. It'll make us look like we have a Mexican in the family. Oh, so the issue is you're racist. That's better. Well, my name is changing, and if you have a problem with it, you can just go on your merry way. I'm not racist. I just don't think Mexicans should be here. They're illegal, you know. Yeah, that's racist. It's a wonder she survived 30 plus years in San Diego. The Grinch does not approve. My husband, at the time we were to be engaged, wanted to respect my wishes and ask my father to marry me. I mean, we were already living together, so this was more of a formality, but it meant something to me, so he did it. They met at a local restaurant and all went well. At least we thought. The Grinch hears about this and decides, since she wasn't included, the approval is invalid. He must do it again, this time with her present. I told him, "Fuck that noise. I don't give a shit if she approves," but he's a good man and decided to meet them again so that she can be there. My dad, of course, is like, yeah, you're just doing this because you know I'm pretty traditional, so it's great, but you don't really need permission. The Grinch, on the other hand, says things like, do you plan on getting your education? My husband has been working in the tech industry for 10 plus years after going to trade school, is very financially independent and secure, and successful in his career. And you realize OP is educated, right? Yeah, I have a degree that I don't even use, bitch. And finally, I'm not sure you should do this, so no, you can't. To which my husband said, well, like Dad said, this was really just us trying to be nice, so see you at the wedding. Seriously, I don't know how he can handle this beast as a mother-in-law. The Grinch and my wedding, or how she tried to take credit for my party. My husband and I were married after a 1.5 year engagement because we paid for the wedding ourselves and needed time to save. We had the wedding we could afford, and by all accounts, we threw a good party, which was my goal. The Grinch had very limited say in this wedding, which is one of the main reasons we paid for everything, but she did make her efforts. We had several pre-meetings with the venue and coordinators. During these meetings, I stressed that the Grinch was to have no say. She sure tried to set things up behind my back and visit the venue all on her own. She was allowed to visit, but they didn't take any of her shit and just said, OP and her husband will have to approve anything you're asking for. Ha! The only thing I did include her on was the cake, because I hate cake and do not eat it. So she and my husband got to do the cake tastings and pick the flavors. I picked the design because Lord knows she would have picked some monstrosity like this, which is pretty if that's your thing, but it's not mine, and not really something that went with the style we were going for. Anyway, the wedding was lovely, and many of the guests commented on how they had never been to the venue, even though they had many San Diego weddings. I was happy to hear that, because I chose the venue for many reasons, one of which that it was different than the typical 4 or 5 places the people in my circle have gotten married at. All lovely places and beautiful weddings, of course. They expressed how they loved the view of Petco Park, and it was so neat to see from a different angle. The Grinch really did a great job finding this place. Record scratch. She what? She said she did all of this. It's really quite lovely. Though, she mentioned being upset about not being part of the dress purchase. Oh, yeah, I found this online, so there wasn't much of a process there. And I found the venue and chose it out of 3. She wasn't there for that either. Just me and my husband. Oh, but she paid for it, right? So you're not in debt? We aren't in debt, but we paid for what we could afford, without the Grinch. At this point, her friends who know her too well gave me a knowing look and smirked. Later, one of them even said, I had a feeling she was making that up, knowing her style versus yours the way I do. And that's the story of the Grinch taking credit for my party. Man, why do manic mothers and racism always go hand in hand? Maybe it's because they're all extremely dense? I was actually reading a study not too long ago that racism is linked to a lack of intelligence and education. Ignorance as opposed to malice sort of thing. Which is so ironic because these mother-in-laws always preach education. Anyway, damn. This mother-in-law, yikes. I really hope that OP starts being more transparent with her mother and stops tiptoeing around things. Like, I really wish that she told her mom that she was in therapy because of her and just flat out told her all the things she was ranting about. I'm one to talk though, because I literally cringe at how I always find huge similarities between my mom and these Mills. And for this one, it was the phone calls and time zone thing. My mom does this all the time. Where have you been? What have you been doing? Why don't you ever answer my overabundance of phone calls? I didn't talk to her for 10 days after I gave birth, and when I finally answered her call, she had the audacity to rudely ask, "What have you been doing?" What have I been doing? Oh, gee, ma. Well, I gave birth a week ago. I'm a first-time mom. I'm learning how to breastfeed and be a parent, have massive amounts of anxiety, and hate talking on the phone. So I guess the answer is, I've been on a week-long vacation. And I actually said something along those lines to her. Her thinking I'm a sarcastic asshole is my lifelong mission, and I'd like to think I've accomplished that. Anyways, sorry if you're all getting sick of me ranting about my just no mother, but I'm sure I'll be doing it again in part 2. Please leave a like and subscribe if you want. I truly appreciate when you do, and I will see you all in part 2 of the Grinch. Bye!